Hello and welcome to episode 67 of the Bearded Banter Podcast, the gaming podcast where today we need more power. I am your host, Shane the Bearded One. With me today is my co-host, Spencer. How are you doing today, Spencer boy?
I'm doing pretty good. Just had to wrangle a puppy.
Yeah, fucking puppies, am I right?
Oh, yeah, 10 months old, so...
I thought he was a year old already.
Nope, he turns a year old in May.
Oh, look, you share birthdays. But anyway, welcome to the Bearded Banter Podcast. Normally, we would be joined by our regular co-host, Matt Leach and Rex, but he did not decide to join us today, mainly because he had nothing to say about the topic in question for this episode, that being Devil May Cry. He said that he hasn't played the games in forever, and he really has nothing to add to the conversation, so he decided to sit this one out. So, Spencer has been upgraded to full co-host for this episode.
Yeah.
Because him and I are the Devil May Cry boys.
Little trial run.
So, welcome to the show. Today we're going to be discussing, like I said, the action-adventure hack-and-slash game developed by Capcom, Devil May Cry. I decided to pick this topic for this episode because DMC5 just came out 2 weeks ago, as of the time of this recording, and...
Has it really been 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's been 2 weeks since DMC5 came out already.
Wow.
I beat that shit in like 3 days, and it was amazing, but we'll get to that. I decided to pick DMC for today's discussion because DMC5 just came out, so the series is relevant, and we just really wanted to talk about DMC. Because, like I said, Spencer and I are the Devil May Cry boys. We love this fucking series. So, let's get right into discussion. If you are not familiar with our topic style format, usually when we pick a topic, we go over a brief synopsis of what the topic is, in this case, Devil May Cry. We go over the history of the topic in question, go over all of the releases that have been released up until this point. Then after that, we go into general opinions about what we think of the franchise as a whole, and then we end off with some reminiscing, some memories or fond experiences with the topic in question. So, if Spencer is ready, we can get right into things.
I am ready to go.
Alright, let's get started. So, for those who are unaware, Devil May Cry is an action-adventure hack-and-slash... I'm already fucking up. It's like real early. I apologize. Anyway, Devil May Cry is an action-adventure hack-and-slash series with third-person shooter and platforming elements developed by Capcom and created by Hideki Kamiya, the mad lad that Kamiya is.
The absolute mad lad.
Absolute mad lad. The series centers on the main protagonist Dante and his goal of avenging his mother's murder by exterminating demons. DMC is a very interesting franchise, not only in what it meant to the action genre as a whole, but also its development history, because this is one of those franchises that has like a super detailed, in-depth, interesting development history that like goes all over the place, because originally, Devil May Cry started as something completely different. So, let's get right into the development history. So, in 1998, after the completion of Resident Evil 2, preliminary work on a PlayStation 2 installment of the Resident Evil series began under the direction of the mad lad Hideki Kamiya. Him and his development team were named Team Little Devils, and originally, what was then known as Resident Evil 4 would eventually become Devil May Cry. The reason why it was split off from the Resident Evil series was because the game that they were developing at the time was too radically different from what had been known as Resident Evil up until that point. It was a more action-oriented game rather than survival horror. But Capcom decided, rather than just abandoning the project and outright canceling it, Capcom decided to let Kamiya's team continue working on the project, but then gave it a different name, hence Devil May Cry. So, already we're off to a very interesting start. DMC was originally supposed to be Resident Evil 4, but of course, Kamiya being the mad lad made it like a complete 180 from what Resident Evil had been known up until that point. But Capcom
this
decided to be
was
gracious.
Not Resident Evil.
No. But Capcom...
Some things carried over in the first game, and we'll talk about that when we get more in depth in the first game, but trust me, this is not a Resident Evil game.
No. So yeah, Capcom decided to let them keep working on it, but they're like, we're going to make this its own thing. And then, because of that, Devil May Cry was born, which was released for the PS2 on August 21st, 2001 in Japan, and October 16th, 2001 in North America. So let's get right into the first game. The story of the first game follows the half-human, half-devil Dante, who runs a devil exterminating business. One day he is attacked in his office by a mysterious woman named Trish. He impresses her by easily brushing off her assault and tells her that he hunts demons in pursuit of those who killed his mother and his brother. She says that the attack was a test and that the demon Emperor Mundus, whom Dante holds responsible for the deaths of his family, is planning a return. Trish leads Dante to Mundus's castle, where he then travels through the castle in order to find Mundus, defeat him, and seal him away to save the human world. So, DMC is a very interesting game for many reasons. One, because of its history, because that shit whack. But two, it is basically the granddad of what we know today as the hack and slash genre. Again, going back to it now in 2019, the first game is extremely jank, but for 2001, this shit was revolutionary. So, like I said, the game is a action hack and slash game with some mild shooter and platforming elements. The gameplay of the game consisted of Dante going through the castle and fighting various forms of demons. The player would control Dante and defeat these demons by using stylish combos with his sword Rebellion and his guns Ebony and Ivory. The game also had a style system where depending on how well you executed your combos and how varied they were, your rank would increase. It would go from dull to cool to bravo to absolute and would peak at stylish. So, this game, again, like I said, this game is considered the granddad of the action genre because at the time there was really no other game like this. DMC kind of ushered in that action hack and slash style gameplay in a 3D space. And because of that, it did very well critically and commercially. The game currently holds a 94% on Metacritic.
Oh shit.
Yeah. I actually did not know it was that high until I looked it up right before we started recording. But yeah, 94. The game holds a 94% on Metacritic. It is still the highest rated game in the entire series. And it sold very well. It sold at 200,000 copies in its first week in the United Kingdom. By July 2006, it had sold over 1 million copies in the United States alone. The game received critical acclaim with reviewers from various news outlets praising its gameplay innovation, action, visuals, camera control, and gothic ambience. It also received positive reviews from video game print publications for similar reasons. Among the things that were praised was the story and also the characters, primarily the character of Dante. A lot of people really liked what they did with Dante's character. He had a very defined personality. While he wasn't too silly and over the top like he would become later on, he was just that campy action hero feel enough to really get people into it.
You can tell that Leon is based off of this style of hero. It's very kind of, no pun intended, but a devil may care attitude.
Yeah. Especially once you understand the development history behind this game and how it originally was going to be Resident Evil 4, a lot of the characteristics that make up Leon's personality you can see in Dante. And you can very clearly tell that Dante was meant to be Leon. So yeah, it scored very well. A lot of people really loved it. It sold like hotcakes. But what do we feel about it? I'm going to start with Spencer. Because out of the two of us, Spencer is the bigger DMC guy. So Spencer, very briefly, what are your feelings on the original Devil May Cry?
See, I'm going to start all of these off by telling the audience and you how many times I've beaten the game. I've beaten DMC 1... 4 times, I believe. I'm on my 4th playthrough right now.
That's a respectable amount.
This game is outstanding. Yeah, it's a bit jank. The use of static camera angles, which is also, you can see from Resident Evil, a holdover, makes the platforming a bit difficult sometimes. The platforming itself is a bit jank because obviously it wasn't 100% made to be a platformer. But the story and the characters and the gameplay, everything feels so tightly made. And when you see what Kamiya has done after this, you're like, okay, Kamiya, this was your baby. This was your start. And, like, everything that Kamiya has done now, you can trace back some of it to the original Devil May Cry. And it's this beautiful gothic castle. The secret missions are really actually quite challenging for secret missions, but they're not challenging in a way that it's broken. The bosses are such... I'm trying to think of the word, but they're so, like, intuitive, and they're easy to understand, and they're obviously, they were well beloved because they come back in DMC5, but it's just this perfect mixture of just care and love for a video game, and it's one of my favorites.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Hideki Kamiya, the brainchild, I'm flubbing my words a lot today. I apologize. It's very
That's
early.
fine. It's 11:20.
But Hideki Kamiya, the creator of Devil May Cry, would eventually leave Capcom along with his team, and they would form Platinum Games. So if you've ever played a Platinum game, you know exactly what Kamiya's style is. And again, he's gone on to work on things like Bayonetta, Metal Gear Rising. He's working very closely with Nintendo now. And you can, again, like Spencer said, you can trace everything back to the original DMC, because if you played that game, you know his trademark style is still very much apparent. I don't have anything to say about the original DMC, because at this point, I haven't played it yet. And I know that's weird, because I deemed myself a Devil May Cry fan and I haven't played the first game. But I've played, other than DMC 1 and DMC 2, I played every other game in the series. I'm going to be playing DMC 1 very soon. You might see a video on it coming. I don't know.
A couple of videos on the channel.
Yeah, you might see a video or two. I don't know. I'm not sure yet. But if it's anything like the later games, just a little dumbed down in comparison, then I'm probably going to love it all the same. Even if it might be a little jank by today's standards. It's still Devil May Cry. Which I can't say about the next game we're going to talk about. Because DMC, like I said, is interesting for a number of reasons. One, its development history, and two, its development history. Let's go right into the next game.
Can we just make this like how it's treated in DMC 5, where it's like, yeah, it exists, okay, bye.
Yeah, okay, DMC... Devil May Cry 2 came out for the PS2 sometime in 2003. Moving on to DMC 3.
Anyways, Dante's Awakening.
No, we have to talk about it. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
So let's move on to the next game in the series. Devil May Cry 2, which was released for the PlayStation 2 on January 25th, 2003 in North America. Released first in North America. Interestingly enough, it was released a couple days afterwards in Japan. Let's talk about the story. The story of Devil May Cry 2 begins with a new character, Lucia, and Dante, separately entering a museum where an important item called the Madagla is stored. After defeating a group of demons in the museum, Lucia invites Dante to follow her to Dumari Island, where he is introduced to Mathieu, her mother. Mathieu explains that she once fought alongside Dante's father, Sparda, to defend the island against demons. She asks Dante to help fight Arius, an international businessman who is using demonic power in an effort to conquer the world. So the game follows Dante and Lucia as they travel through the world in order to stop Arius and his demonic schemes. Gameplay-wise, this game is very similar to the first game. Again, it's an action hack-and-slash game. You use your sword and guns to create stylish combos. The style system is back, albeit with new rankings. They change every game. But in terms of combat, the game is pretty much the same, other than some very notable differences, which we will get to when we talk about the critical reception, which was not great, to say the least.
They made this game for Americans.
Yeah.
This was a Western-made game that they stole.
Well,
they stole from Kamiya.
Well, before I get to the critical reception and all that, I'm going to talk a little bit about its development history, because Spencer is right. This game was developed primarily with a Western audience in mind, mainly because Capcom decided that they were going to greenlight a sequel without letting the original development team know. Yeah. So they completely shunned Kamiya and Team Little Devils. They started working on a sequel to DMC in secret with a completely different development team, completely different director. Everything was different, and the original team didn't learn until much later that they were basically scrapped, which sucks. But, Capcom has a very shady history, so it's to be expected. Eventually, the game was so bad. The game had such a hellish production that they had to completely scrap the original director, and then they brought in who would eventually become the series director as a whole, other than the reboot, Hideaki Itsuno, which, fun fact, he follows me on Twitter. So
yeah, I'm fucking super jealous, my friend.
Be jealous about that. Hey, guess what? If you play his game right as it comes out and tweet about it a bunch, he might just end up following you. Who knows? But yeah, this game has a very, very troubled production. It was just all over the place, and as such, the quality reflected the hardships that it faced, because critical reception was extremely mixed, with significantly lower scores than its predecessor. It currently holds a 68 on Metacritic, which all in all isn't too bad, but compared to the first game's 94%, is a huge drop in quality. Chief complaints among critics was that the difficulty was much lower than in the first game. The combat system was also criticized as being less refined, with individual weapons being weaker or stronger variants of the same weapon instead of different weapons with their own advantages and disadvantages. Boss battles were criticized for requiring less strategy. The environment was also considered less detailed than the environments of the first game, trading detail for open space. And furthermore, Dante received a change in his personality, which did not sit well with reviewers. His cockiness was considerably toned down, and he rarely spoke during the game. And when he did, he was kind of just a generic edge boy with no discernible personality whatsoever.
It's like if Shadow the Hedgehog was way too into the Divine Comedy.
Yeah. So it's sad. This game was just a train wreck in every sense of the word, from its production to its release to its reception. Not a lot of people like this game. But what do we feel about it? Again, I haven't played DMC2 yet. And honestly, if I had a choice, I would just wipe my hands clean of this from everything I've heard of it. I will eventually play it, and you will probably see my suffering on the channel at some point. But let's talk to the person who has played DMC2. Spencer, please, you have the floor.
I want you to guess, Shane, how many times have I beaten DMC2?
I want to say just once. Or you haven't beaten it.
I have beaten it once, and I'm on my second playthrough. I'm going to list off a short list of things, of the cool things about DMC2. Things that are good about DMC2. 1. The stylish ranking. In DMC 1, you had dull, cool, bravo, absolute, /awesome, and stylish. In DMC 2, it's don't worry, come on, bingo, are you ready, and showtime. It's one of the most accurate stylish rankings they've done. It's really good. You can beat the game with Ebony and Ivory, and I like Ebony and Ivory, so there you go. I'm not kidding you, the guns cause knockback and stun. You just fire Ebony and Ivory at the enemies, and they will eventually die.
Yeah, he's not kidding. You can literally just spam the shoot button through the entire game, and it would be perfectly fine.
2, there was a a glitch where if you ejected the disc in the PS2 without turning the game off and put the other disc in, you could play the entire side of that story with the other character. And three, I guess 3 or 4, is that some of the bosses are pretty good. Aside from that, this game is a steaming fucking piece of shit. They ruined Dante by making him edgy. And thank God for DMC 3, which does the exact opposite of what DMC 2 does with his character. The gameplay isn't fun, and I'll send you a video after by a YouTuber called The Spear Hunter, and she does a really, really good video on the DMC videos from the DMC series, so you should check out her DMC 2 video. She talks more about the kind of stuff that happens and why this game is such a train wreck. Friggin' recommend it. But I played this once. I'm in the middle of my second playthrough with the HD collection, which fixes some of the things, but it's mostly just the technical aspects. This game sucks. Let's move on.
Okay. I wish I had anything to contribute, but again, I haven't played it. But from everything I've heard from a bunch of different people, Spencer's account is basically right on the money. But let's move on to the good one. The next game in the series followed up just a couple years after the train wreck that was known as DMC2. Let's talk about Devil May Cry 3, Dante's Awakening, which was released for the PlayStation 2 on February 17th, 2005 in Japan, and March 1st, 2005 in North America. It was eventually re-released as the Special Edition, which included a few more modes and the playable character of Vergil, for the PlayStation 2 on January 24th, 2006 in North America, and the following month in Japan. Now, when we talk about the story of Devil May Cry 3, very interesting, because Devil May Cry 3 is a prequel to the entire series. It is a prequel to the first game that opens in Dante's yet unnamed shop in an American metropolis. A mysterious man, Arkham, arrives with an invitation from Dante's brother Vergil in the guise of a demonic attack. After Dante defeats his adversaries, a huge tower erupts from the ground nearby, eclipsing the sprawling city surrounding it. Sensing that Vergil is on the structure, Dante interprets this as a challenge. He begins fighting demons during his journey and makes his way towards the tower to confront his brother Vergil, who is forming a plan with Arkham to open a portal to the demon realm in order to take over the planet. Now, gameplay for Devil May Cry 3, again, is very similar to the previous two, but there were a lot of additions that made this easily the most fleshed out combat system in the entire series. Firstly, they had a new and improved style ranking system, which went from D all the way to triple S, which is one of my favorite style series in the entire series. There is Dope, Crazy, Blast, Alright, Sweet, Showtime, and Stylish. On top of that, there are a few tweaks to the overall combat, primarily through the use of the new style system. Separate from the style rankings, the style system incorporated different styles of combat that Dante could utilize. There were 4 styles in particular. There was Swordmaster, Gunslinger, Trickster, and Royal Guard. Each of these emphasizes one of Dante's primary combat styles. So things like Trickster emphasize movement, Swordmaster emphasizes swordplay and combos, Gunslinger emphasizes your guns, and Royal Guard is a counter style. This game also brings back the Devil Trigger, which I forgot to mention in the midst of DMC1. It also brings back the Devil Trigger mode, which is a souped-up, powered version of Dante that gives him regenerating health, faster movement speed, and increased damage output. This game also lets you utilize more than one weapon, where you can equip 2 swords and 2 guns at a time, being able to freely switch between the two. So yeah, gameplay, in the sense of Devil May Cry 3, is much improved from the previous games. There's a lot more mechanics that are thrown in, and all of it just kind of blends together to create this very quick, very fluid, satisfying combat system. And the new combat system and the new story resonated with critics because we are back up in the rankings. This game was very well received when it came out. It currently holds a score of 87 on Metacritic. And reviews typically praise the game for avoiding the predecessor's mistakes and for customization options, gameplay, the new combat engine, and the musical score. Which actually, music in this game, fucking dope. Am I right?
Yeah. Music in 1, dope.
Music in 2?
All right. There's a couple of tracks that are absolute bangers, but for the most part, it's just like it. Okay, it's your. You would find the DMC2 soundtrack in like a game like Hatred.
Oh no!
That like hard rock, like screaming into nothingness kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like Subhuman before they patched it to make it better.
Ew.
Yeah.
But anyway, critics also praised the style-based combat system, because it produced fighting sequences superior to games such as Ninja Gaiden and Prince of Persia. The camera and controls were also praised. However, the difficulty was criticized because the North American high level of difficulty in the non-special edition was considered too hard for most players. Because, if you're unaware, the normal in the original release was actually the Japanese hard mode. So, the game was woefully unbalanced and way too hard for most people. The PC version was also vastly inferior to the PlayStation 2 version due to the poor porting process. The PC version holds a 66 on Metacritic in comparison to the 87 that the original PS2 version has. The special edition that was released the following year was critically acclaimed. It was commended for recalibrating its difficulty, introducing the survival mode that would become the staple for the series, known as Bloody Palace, and also making Vergil as a playable character. Playing as Vergil was cited for the character's difference from Dante, although the reuse of Dante's bosses and lack of cutscenes was criticized. Because you could literally have a mirror match with Vergil versus Vergil in this game. Which is kind of hilarious, and I actually can't wait to do that. But yeah, DMC3 was a huge step up from the previous game. It basically remedied all of the issues that people had with DMC2. And on top of that, it made a very satisfying, stylish, and memorable game in the process. Now, I'm going to start with myself in terms of opinions, because I've actually played Devil May Cry 3. I played the special edition that is available on the HD collection. This game is fucking phenomenal. Especially going back to it now, because I just recently, in the past few days, went back to it after I played DMC5. This game is great. It holds up remarkably well. While it's not as in-depth as something like Devil May Cry 5 or even DMC4, it is still very, very, very fun. The style rankings are phenomenal. The combat system is very in-depth and detailed. You can pull off some crazy combos in this game if you know what you're doing. The introduction of the styles became a series staple for Dante's playstyle. However, you can't switch between them freely in this game like you could in DMC 4 and 5, which kind of limits how you play the game, because not being able to switch between them on the fly just kind of desensitizes you to using one over the other. So like me, I prioritize Swordmaster over the rest, because I'm all about extending my combos and, air juggling and all that stuff. So that's a little bit of an issue.
I want you to take a guess on what style I use the most.
I know you have a thing for guns, so I'm gonna guess Gunslinger.
You're right.
How would I have ever guessed?
Dude,
it's like I know you for more than 5 minutes.
Fireworks is really good, okay? Fuck you.
But yeah, this game's great. I love what they did with the story, because it's this it's this super serious story, and they play it completely straight. They're like, oh, the world is on the verge of destruction. Dante has to stop his brother Vergil from opening the portal to the demon world. But then you actually meet the characters, and you see their personalities, and you see how the cutscenes are directed and shot, and it's just completely over-the-top, silly bullshit it's played completely straight. And honestly, in a game like this, where it knows exactly what it is, I love that. I love that contrast. Because it's like, oh, demons are attacking Dante's shop. What does he do in this extremely serious life-or-death situation? He karate chops a jukebox, and he juggles demons around while eating pizza. And it's like, props to Itsuno for salvaging this series after DMC2, because his direction and the characterization are spot on.
Oh boy, by the way, I hope you guys like pizza, because that's going to be one of Dante's main character traits.
He just really likes pizza.
He really likes pizza. Woohoo pizza time is what we call him.
Yeah, pizza time.
Pizza time.
This party's getting crazy. Let's rock.
And then it starts playing the fucking battle. Oh, it's so good. I love it.
But anyway, that's enough about how I feel, because I love this game. How do you feel about DMC3, Spencer?
I have played and beaten DMC3.
Hang on, let me guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
6 times.
Correct.
Oh, okay. I wasn't expecting that.
I've played and beaten it 6 times. I am once again in the middle of my 6th playthrough, because the HD collection is the first 3 games. Mm-hmm. Which, if you are getting into DMC and you want to start with 1, or even just start with 3, I still recommend picking up the HD collection, because it's for your money. It's well worth it.
And it's available on everything. It's on the last generation, it's on the current generation, it's on PC, and it's super cheap. So
I didn't want you to hear me sneeze, blow my nose into the microphone.
Well, thank you for being considerate.
I'm considerate to the audience and to you, but oh god, this game! Not only does it fully actually introduce one of the best characters in this series, that being
Vergil,
but not only does, I think his name is Dan Southend, the voice of Vergil.
Yeah, I think it's Daniel Sutherland's.
Yeah, no, because Daniel Sutherland sounds like Keith or Sutherland and/or the character from. No, I think it's Dan Southend is his name.
Here, I'll look it up. You continue.
Look up while I'm talking. But he does the perfect voice for Vergil, which is, while Dante, voiced by Ruben Langdon, by the way, who has voiced Dante since DMC2.
No, DMC3.
No, C3. Three. Forgot. Not only does he bring Woohoo Pizza Man into what we know and love, but the voice of Vergil is, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, but he sounds like a massive dork.
He sounds like a fucking dweeb.
Like, it's an old word, but Shane's 100% correct. He sounds like a fucking dweeb. He
sounds like this incredible, like, he sounds like if he was like a real person, he would have like the taped up glasses and the pocket protector. He sounds like that kind of guy.
He sounds like the kind of guy who legitimately has a katana and threatens to like fight people with it.
I want what you have. Give me your sword. You already have one. Well, I want yours too. It's like,
so good.
I love the characterization of these two, because they try to play it completely straight, and they try to play it cool and be the badasses that we know they are, but in reality, they're just really immature kids. Like,
you have Vergil, who is the older brother, who is obsessed with power, and he wants to be like his father, Sparda, and get more and more power. And then you have Dante, the younger brother, who is this immature man-child who really, really likes his mom.
Yeah. Okay, Vergil is like the straight-A student who stays at home and doesn't do anything. Dante, on the other hand, is like flunking all his classes, and he regularly like sneaks out of the house. And like, I just love the dynamic between the two, because it's like, it's a, as over the top and silly as it is, it's like a perfect depiction of a sibling rivalry.
Oh yeah,
In like the weirdest possible sense.
This is also is actually one of the most interesting things. Is you talked about the characterization of Dante. Well, when we get to the reboot and we get to Dino, I'll talk a bit more about it. But Dante doesn't drink. Dante doesn't smoke. Dante doesn't swear.
And you know, it's really apparent going back to it, because you're right, he doesn't do any of that throughout any of the games.
He's supposed to be like your old school superhero. You know, he doesn't know, and I'm almost positive, especially after what I've seen of DMC5, that this man has no idea what sex is.
No, probably not.
Because he has like 3 or 4 extremely attractive people just on his dick, and he's just like, woo pizza.
All right, he's got Trish, which I could see why he'd avoid that, because, you know, Oedipus complex.
Oedipus complex, his mother.
He's got Lady, which hit that, like, for
the
love of God.
Speaking of Lady, this is the game she's introduced in.
Yeah, and Lady's fucking awesome. Like,
I love her.
Like, it makes sense for, like, Dante and Vergil because they're half demon. What is her excuse for being this fucking cool? Like, she's just a normal person.
She's just a human who is like, hey, I got some guns, and I hate my dad.
She's literally just a lady, and yet she's doing all these crazy flips and these acrobatics and, like, shooting demons and stuffing their faces with grenades and shit. And I'm like, what the hell?
And all of this in like a schoolgirl uniform, and you're just like,
And she only gets hotter?
Yeah, hotter? As the series goes on. Mostly because she becomes legal.
Yeah. By the way, the English voice of Vergil from DMC 3 onwards is Daniel Southworth.
Daniel Southworth, that's it.
Daniel Southworth.
I got 3/4 of your name right. I apologize for messing up. This game's outstanding.
Yeah.
The style system is gorgeous and super fun to use, especially Royal Guard if you get good at it.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just bamf characters. This game has some fucking super fun bosses. It's the introduction of things like the Quicksilver style, which would become a staple. And just overall, the story is stupid.
The story's stupid, but the way they play it just makes it incredibly engaging.
And if you play through DMC3 and you enjoyed what you played, and you enjoyed the characters and the personality that is given to them, you will enjoy the rest of the series going on.
Yeah, play DMC4 or play DMC5, because those are just evolutions of what this game is.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, it's some great stuff. But let's move on, shall we? Let's move on to the next game in the series, Devil May Cry 4, which is a first for the series, because it is the first game on its initial launch that was multi-platform. It was released for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 on January 31st, 2008 in Japan, and February 5th, 2008 in North America. Now, when discussing the plot of this game, the plot follows a new character, Nero, who is a young man who works in the island castle town of Fortuna for the Order of the Sword, a sect of holy knights who revere the demon Sparda and are led by their benevolent spiritual leader, Vicar Sanctus. At the beginning of the game's events, Nero attends a sermon to the Packed Opera House during the Festival of the Sword celebration and witnesses Sanctus's murder by the hands of Dante. As the Order's captain, Credo leads his sister and Nero's love interest, Kyrie, to safety with the others. Nero remains behind to fight Dante as he kills Order soldiers. During the fight, having concealed his right arm in a brace, Nero is speechless when his forearm mutated as the result of his latent demon power. From there on, Dante recognizes that Nero is different from the others, and escapes after revealing the Order members he killed were demons. Nero requests to go after Dante alone, encountering demons that are emerging from the activated Hellgates scattered across Fortuna. So the game follows Nero on his search for Dante to get answers as to who he is and why he attacked the Order of the Sword. Now, gameplay, in the terms of Devil May Cry 4, very similar to DMC3. It brings back the style system, albeit with different style rankings. It brings back Dante's styles, which, new to this game, he can switch between all four on the fly during combat, which can lead to some crazy bullshit. And if you've ever seen, if you've seen combo videos of this game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But in terms of playable characters, we have two this time. We have Dante, who is very similar to how he handled in DMC3, albeit with some new moves, and again, the fact that he can switch styles on the fly. And the new character, Nero, who controls very similarly to Dante, albeit he has his own tricks up his sleeve, primarily his sword, the Red Queen, which has a motorcycle engine in it that he can actively rev in order to increase the power of his attacks. And his Devilbringer arm, which he can use as a grapple to grapple enemies towards him and to grapple to certain points in the environment. And he can also use it as a grab during combat to perform stylish executions on enemies. This game also brings back the Devil Trigger state, introduced in the original Devil May Cry and was later brought back in DMC3, which increases movement speed, revitalizes health, and increases damage output. Is there anything else in terms of gameplay that is different?
There, aside, oh yes, there is that. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry. Oh, technically, you no longer purchase skills with red orbs like you do. Oh yes,
you purchase them with Proud Souls now.
Souls. Red orbs are specifically used to shop in items, and you can do a thing which is called distortion. Distortion is when you trigger in your human form, which basically produces a double type attack. So you go human form to human form. The most common one used is with Gilgamesh, and it's known as a distorted real impact, or a DRI. Basically, real impact is a slow, winding uppercut that hits multiple times.
That move is fucking broken, by the way.
It's broken by itself. If you distort during the hits, so you hit DT, hit un-DT, hit DT, un-DT, hit DT. You hit your real impact 6 times with the base damage and the DT damage, which causes some bosses to go down in one hit.
Yeah. You can basically use the Devil Trigger as like a cancel to extend moves, and it completely breaks this fucking game.
It was originally thought to be a bug, but it's not. It's a feature in DMC5 as well. You can distort things. And that's basically all the gameplay stuff that's different.
Yeah. In terms of critical reception, this game scored very well. It currently has an 84 on Metacritic for both the PS3 and the 360 versions, with a 78 for the PC version. Devil May Cry 4 received high praise for its hack-and-slash mechanics. Some called it the most solid out of all of the Devil May Cry games, citing its responsive controls despite being the first game in the series to be released for the 360, there was a big debacle about that it was being released multi-plat. I personally don't care. But then again, I didn't grow up with the series, so I don't know how people who did feel about that. If you want to cue in on that, Spencer, you can. I don't think you care, right?
What?
About the fact that DMC4 went multi-plat and it wasn't an exclusive anymore?
Doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It just means more people can play DMC.
Yeah. Others rated the game's degree of difficulty positively based on how the system ranks the player and the challenges the game offers. Other praises the gameplay and how predictably slick it looks. However, sites often criticize the game's backtracking elements, which is the one big criticism that most people have about this game. A big issue found within the level design. Basically, this game lets you play as both Dante and Nero. However, it makes you backtrack through all the same levels and fight all the same bosses multiple times, which a lot of people were not very fond of. But in terms of reception, others praised the presentation, voice acting, fight scenes, but some criticized the corny dialogue, stating that it was outdated at the time. The introduction of Nero as a new protagonist was well received. Particular praise go to Johnny Young Bosch for his incredible performance as Nero, which Johnny Young Bosch is the boy.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a lot of the praise goes to the gameplay for being extremely varied and being a true evolution of what DMC3 brought to the table. But some criticize the story and the characters for being a little too corny, and the backtracking turned a lot of people off. But let's talk about it. I have also played DMC4. DMC4 is one of those games that it has a weird standing to me because it's definitely not my favorite. But regardless, I love this fucking game. It's one of those games where I can go back to it literally at any point, just pick it up and just go right into it. This was my Christmas game for a long time because, I'm sure a lot of people like me get really antsy on Christmas Eve waiting for the big day to show up. So you're like, what do I do for the day? I need something to distract myself. So, a lot of the time on Christmas Eve, I would play DMC4 and I would just go through it in like one sitting. This game is incredibly fun. I agree with a lot of the critics saying it's a proper evolution of DMC3. I love Nero. Like, I'm sorry, Dante, but Nero might be my favorite character in the entire series. Like, he feels like what Dante used to be without as much of the bratty undertones. Because as much as I love his characterization in DMC3, Dante's a fucking brat in that game. And Nero just feels like young Dante without all the brattiness. And his sword, the Red Queen, is fucking awesome. His Devil Bringer is one of the best mechanics the series has ever seen. And sure, it can be incredibly broken, but it's so fun to use. I just love everything about Nero. But of course, Dante is great too. The fact that you can switch between his styles on the fly is a great addition to the game. Because it means one of my big criticisms of DMC3 is now completely null and void, because you can switch between them on the fly. So I use styles that I never would have considered using in DMC3. Like, I switched to Gunslinger all the time because he has that move that you can do in the air where he twirls around with the guns, and that move is fucking great for crowd control. I use it all the time. The weapons in this game are great because it introduces a lot of new weapons. The fact that you can switch out between so many things on the fly just makes the combat incredibly satisfying to pull off. Because if you can get a really long combo string going where you switch between multiple weapons and guns and styles, and in the case of Nero, if you use the Devil Bringer and you rev up the Red Queen every now and then, like, the combat in this game is honestly one of the best in the series. It might even be the best. Just because it has so many variables that you have to consider, and it has so much variety, that it really makes every encounter in this game fucking phenomenal to play through. And again, the story is great, characters are great, the game looks great for when it came out. This is a game that came out in 2008, and it aged very well for the most part. But let's hear what Spencer has to say. Spencer, how do you feel about DMC4?
Well, it has... Let's just say it's the most I've played.
Okay. I'm gonna guess. I don't want to go too high. I'm going to guess 9 times.
Close. I'll tell you this. Plus or minus 1.
10.
Yep. I've played and beaten this 10 times. I've played and beaten this twice normal, twice with Lady, twice with Trish.
Because of the special edition.
Special edition. Twice Vergil. Once normal, but on DMD.
Mm-hmm.
And then once normal in Heaven or Hell. I love this game so much, man.
Mm-hmm.
This game, you have a total of 16 weapons to use. That includes all of them. However, that doesn't include, obviously, the fact that Pandora is like 7 weapons deep.
Pandora's weird.
Pandora's very weird.
Yeah.
But it gives us the greatest... Oh god, there's so many things to talk about in DMC4. Okay, so, Lucifer are exploding roses. Cerberus... nunchucks.
Mm-hmm.
Gilgamesh is your punchy, kicky. You obviously have Rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
How do you use these?
Go for it.
Dante is the most woohoo pizza man he's ever been.
Do we even have to mention it at this point?
I really want to.
I mean,
this man has a full-on soliloquy.
Yeah, that's all we have to bring up. We just have to bring up his performance.
The fight against
with Agnes. Yeah.
Yeah, he literally breaks out in a full Shakespearean fucking soliloquy before the battle starts, and Agnes fucking plays along with it. This game is perfect, okay? Especially the special edition. This game is perfect.
Yeah.
And not only does it give us the greatest intro sequence...
Oh, yeah. Like, the introduction to Devil May Cry 4 is quite possibly my favorite intro in any game. Just the fact that Nero and Dante go at it, and the fact that their first interaction is Nero drop-kicking Dante into a statue with the best drop-kick in video game history.
Oh, yes. That's like, do not at me. I will fight you on that.
Yeah, do not at him on Twitter at BeeryBird2e's.
The drop-kick is absolutely perfect. And it's so good. Nero's so good.
That entire sequence is so good when they like throw each other into the benches and they bring down the sword that's on the statue and they run up it and everything about that. When my favorite part, other than the dropkick, is at the very end when Nero sends Dante flying and he catches up to him, grabs him with the Devil Bringer, and just slams him into the ground.
And he starts beating the shit out of Dante. And Dante is smiling.
Mm-hmm. Because he's like, this kid.
This kid reminds me of someone.
It could be several people.
It could be his father.
It could be his father. It could be a younger version of himself. It could be his brother.
It could be the fact that his girlfriend Kyrie is in this game. And people ask me, what does Kyrie do? And I just go...
nothing.
She sings.
She sings for like a few minutes.
In the beginning, and that scene's amazing when it's her singing and it's Nero fucking destroying and like just absolutely beating the shit out of puppets and just so good. This game is the best.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what Dante is.
Yeah.
This is what Nero is. Nero is the opposite of Dante. Nero swears. Nero doesn't give a shit. Nero is the punk rock hero. Anti-establishment, anti-authority, anti-adult.
Mm-hmm.
Just, he's like 1 second away from donning like a leather jacket and just like flipping everybody off.
Which, I mean, he has a faux leather jacket in 5, so...
Yes, he does.
But, like, the difference between the two is impeccable, because Dante is, like, your super old-school kind of hero. Doesn't drink, swear, do drugs, doesn't do any of that. Probably doesn't know what sex is. Where, in comparison, Nero has fucked Kyrie on several occasions.
Occasions. And if he didn't, he is stupid not to.
Oh yeah, he is fucking...
Have you seen Kyrie? She is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
This also has another one of my favorite style rankings, which is Deadly, Carnage, Brutal, Atomic, Smokin' Style, and Spoken 6 Style.
This game's great, dude. Like,
dude, there's nothing. There's really no downsides to talk about in this game aside from that. Yeah, the levels are a bit linear.
Yeah, and the backtrack is a little obnoxious.
Yeah, a little obnoxious, but if you can get over that fact, you are going to play arguably one of the greatest action games ever made.
Yeah. Get the special edition. It's on every modern console and PC. It's really cheap. Speaking of the special edition, I briefly want to mention that special edition was released June 18th, 2015 in Japan and June 23rd, 2015 worldwide for the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC. It currently holds a 76 on Metacritic for the console version, a 72 on PC. The special edition included, much like DMC3's special edition, a bunch of new modes, a bunch of new characters, some balancing tweaks in terms of difficulty and combat. It was praised for these additions, but it was also criticized for the fact that it really didn't fix any of the issues with the original game. So there's still all the backtracking, there's still, the corny dialogue. But yeah, the special edition is the way to play this game. Mainly because it's readily available on all modern consoles, and the fact that it has all of these extra features to it. Yeah, if you can, pick it up. It's super cheap. But let's move on. I briefly want to take a detour to talk about the HD collection. The Devil May Cry HD collection was released for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 on March 22nd, 2012 in Japan and March 29th, 2012 in North America. It was later re-released for the PC, PS4, and Xbox One on March 13th, 2018. Not much to talk about here. It's just an HD collection. It's a compilation of DMC 1, 2, and 3, including 3's special edition. It includes things like widescreen support, HD resolution, trophies or achievements depending on the platform that you're playing on. There's some very minor tweaks and rebalances to some of the games in terms of difficulty and other things like that. But really, not much to talk about, just an HD collection. I just wanted to mention it for anyone who is unaware.
I think if you get this on the Xbox version as well, you get themes. Mm-hmm. So I have the DMC3 theme, which has a picture of Dante and Lady.
Yep. There's a theme for every game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, DMC 1, 2, and 3.
But here we are at the most divisive game in the entire franchise. Let's talk about the reboot.
Let's talk about DMC Devil May Cry.
I can't get over that name.
DMC Devil May Cry.
DMC Devil May Cry was developed by Ninja Theory, not Capcom, and it was released originally for the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 on January 15th, 2013 worldwide, with a Japanese release coming 2 days later. It was eventually released for PC on January 25th, 2013, and again re-released as a definitive edition for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One on March 10th, 2015. There's a lot to talk about in regards to this game. Seeing as how it is a reboot, it is a complete reimagining of the Devil May Cry series. Completely different designs for all of its characters, completely different backstories, personalities. Everything was changed. I'm going to start with the story, which is kind of an undertaking, but I'll try my best. So, DMC Devil May Cry is set in an alternate reality of the series. The game's story takes place in Limbo City, a modern-day city secretly controlled by all-powerful demons, manipulating humanity through the comforts of life, with the demons themselves residing in a parallel plane called Limbo. Living on the fringes of the brainwashed society is Dante, a young man at odds with the demons who constantly hunt him and the civilian authorities they control. Dante is warned by a young woman named Kat that he is in danger, just as a hunter demon drags him into Limbo. Dante navigates the Pier Carnival and kills the demon with Kat's aid, who can see into Limbo with her psychic powers. Dante returns to the human world and accepts Kat's offer to meet with her boss, Vergil. There he learns that Vergil is in fact his brother, and that the Demon King Mundus, who in this game is a corporate CEO who is controlling the human world through propaganda and capitalism and all of those things, wants to open a portal to the demon world in order to have full reign over the planet. Vergil brings Dante into his anti-establishment movement in order to bring down the Demon King Mundus and avenge their father, Sparda. Now, a couple things of note. In this game, Dante and Vergil are not half human, half demon. They are what are referred to as Nephilim, which are half angels, half demon. Obviously, the canon was rewritten for the reboot. Their mother, Ava, is now an angel rather than just a normal human. Their personalities were completely changed. Dante, instead of being the cocky, smug badass with a heart of gold, is now basically what Nero was in DMC4, cranked up to like 11. He constantly drinks, swears, smokes, fucks several women at once. And
which
Vergil,
turned out to be his guns, by the way.
Yeah. And Vergil, instead of being a very snarky, immature, but calculating mastermind, is now a hacker.
He's your hacker.
He's just a hacker.
He...
And instead of being on a conquest for power, he instead wants to rid the world of said power in order to free the humans from their control. And he does so by just kind of giving the orders and hacking a mainframe or two. And then eventually he uses a sword at the end. But, yeah. Don't worry, we'll get into it. This game has a very interesting development history that I don't want to touch on too much because it's very lengthy. Mainly, DMC4 did not sell as well as Capcom had hoped it would. So, in a crackpot move in order to save the franchise, they decided to reboot it. The only issue they had with it was that they wanted it to be completely different from what was previously established. So they hired Ninja Theory, who had a relatively decent track record with games like Heavenly Sword and Odyssey. What was the name of that game?
What?
I'm going to look it up because I know exactly what I'm talking about. I just can't remember the name of it. Enslaved Odyssey to the West. That was it.
That's it, yeah.
That's it. So they had a good track record, so Capcom brought them on to develop the game. They completely changed up everything about the game, not only in terms of its story and its characters, but also its combat. Because combat in this game is very similar yet different from the other games. Again, players control Dante as he uses his powers and weaponry to fight against enemies. Like in previous games, he uses his sword Rebellion and his twin pistols Ebony and Ivory. New to the series, though, are modifiers to Dante's moveset known as Angel Mode and Devil Mode, which, of course, correlate to his new Nephilim origins. He can now use separate demon and angel weapons to take out enemies, using one by holding it down either of the triggers while in combat. In Angel Mode, he uses the Scythe Osiris, and in Devil Mode, he uses a slower but more powerful axe, Arbiter. And throughout the course of the game, you get different weapons depending on which side they fall on, either demon or angel. He also gets some alterations to his mobility. He can use Angel Mode to pull himself towards various grapple points, much like Nero could in DMC4. But he can also use the Arbiter to pull things towards him. Again, much like Nero could with his Devilbringer. He can also dash across gaps with his Angel Mode. And Devil Trigger mode also comes back, albeit very different from previous Devil Triggers. Instead of activating it and getting a huge boost in power and speed, new Dante has a weird Devil Trigger where he slows down time and thrusts enemies into the air, keeping them in a form of stasis. Which is very weird, and honestly, it's not that great. But there are a lot of issues with this game that we'll get into. The reception of this game was mostly positive, very positive, actually. Critical reception, it stands at a 85 on Metacritic. The game's story received positive responses from critics. Some thought that the story successfully combined with the series' gameplay. In addition, they praised the quality of the game's well-directed cutscenes. Some considered the game's storytelling a refinement for the series. However, others criticized the length of the game's campaign, thinking that it was too short and predictable. The gameplay was also very positively received. Some called the combat flexitive. I'm flubbing my words all over the place, I apologize. Some called the combat flexible, and thought that the developer had created a lot of memorable levels and stages with the use of Limbo, which I will give credit where credit is due. Limbo is a cool concept that is very well utilized in this game. Others praised the flow of combat and thought that the use of the Rebellion in the game was an awesome achievement. Despite that, others criticized the platforming in the game, which many found boring and monotonous. Others further criticized the design of the game's boss battles, being very disappointing and easy to defeat. Some thought that the game's combat system was the most intelligent design to date, praising the game's more simplistic user interface and combo system, but others criticized the camera, which some people thought had failed to catch up with the combat. The game's art style also received heavy acclaim, praising the game's art style as striking to look at, which I'll agree, the game's very nice to look at. A lot of the issues with this game come from the new take on the universe. While most critics praised the new Dante as removing the old Dante's unappealing personality traits and making him a more approachable protagonist, a lot of fans hate this fucking Dante. While some critics describe him as a fresh and imaginative take on Dante, most fans agree that this basically destroys Dante's character. And again, there are a lot of other issues that fans have with it because the critical reception and the fan reception are completely different. Like, they're complete 180s. Because a lot of the issues that the fans have with this game are the fact that they dumbed down the combat, they made it too simplistic in relation to the other games. The new setting and the new story are uninspired and overly serious for what Devil May Cry had established itself as up until this point. And again, most of the criticism comes in the form of the characterization, mainly Dante and Vergil being completely opposite of what their original characters were. In terms of what we feel, this is where things get interesting. Because I'm going to start with Spencer. Spencer, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about DMC Devil May Cry?
Before I start, I want to preface this with, I don't despise the reboot. I don't even hate the reboot. However, through my take on the game, I will not be referring to that character as Dante. I will be referring to him as either Dante or Dino. Dino is a fan-made term to describe that character, which is Dante in name only, or Dino. They fucked up his character so badly. So badly. And there are actual images of Ninja Theory going, we need Dante to be like this, not like this. And one of them was a scene.
This shit again.
One of them was a scene from Brokeback Mountain. So the joke is that we need Dante to not be a gay cowboy. He can't be a gay cowboy. He has to be this edgelord. And I don't hate Ninja Theory at all. I think they're relatively competent game makers. They made some really good games. But they are not the people to make a DMC game. One of the funniest parts about this game was that through the which Shane didn't know because he only played the special edition, definitive edition.
When you told me this shit, I fucking died.
Yeah. Is that one of the big changes is that they retconned out Vergil's fedora. In the original game, Vergil wore a fedora for almost, I think, the entire game. And 90% of the game.
You know what? You're right. Because after you told me that, I'd seen some videos. They used footage from the original release. And yeah, he always has that fucking fedora on. Yep. Like, you never see his hair.
Never see his hair without that fedora. So, in the definitive edition, because people are complaining about it, they retconned it out of existence. The fedora no longer exists.
He only wears it in, like, one scene, I think.
Yes. 2, there are some parts of the game that just seem really insulting to fans of the original games. The one that everybody talks about is when the white wig falls on top of Dante and he looks in the mirror and he goes, "Not in a million years."
Not in a million years.
The wig off. And it's like, if that would have been the end of it, I would be fine. I would be like, that's not a good joke.
Tongue in cheek,
Tongue in cheek, but whatever. But no, when he goes DT, guess what?
His hair turns white.
His hair turns white. They costumes in the definitive edition that makes his hair white. That gives him the original Dante costume.
Yep.
Like, at that point, you're just a dick. You're just doing that just to make fun of the fan base. Like, Dante starts out fucking his guns, and I won't lie and say that the intro sequence isn't really stylish and cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool in the carnival.
Yeah. But this is 100%. This is the epitome of that guy on Twitter who responds to everything with there is no ethical consumption under capitalism. Because you murder Bill O'Reilly.
Oh, boy.
Sorry, Bob Bargus.
Yeah, Bob Bargus, remember.
Just doing God's work.
Or hold on. DMC reboot. Bob Dylan? No. Bob Barbus. There it is.
Bob Barbus.
Bob
Barbus. Doing God's work.
Just doing God's work.
He's the best part of the game. Like, hands down, his level is the best part of the game.
Oh, yeah, I can agree there.
And then you go into like the soda factory, and it's like pop is being used by advertisers to keep the people fat and lethargic. News is being used to treat people like they're sheep and give them the information they deserve. The government is spying on you and being run by big business. Like, This is not a subtle game.
I don't
Vergil
think
shoots
they
a
actually
pregnant
know.
woman with a sniper rifle.
Yeah, I don't think they actually know the definition of
Subtly?
subtlety.
No. This is like even the fan, not the fan base, but even like the music is like full of fucking anger and punk anguish.
Well, yeah, it's done by Combi Christ, so.
Yeah. This is also, and this is actually finally, I can bring it up. If you've noticed through the stylish rankings, all of them are pretty positive.
Yeah.
You have, in DMC 2, you have Don't Worry, Come On, Bingo, Are You Ready, Showtime. DMC 4, you have Deadly, Carnage, Brutal, Atomic, Smokin' Style, Smokin' Sick Style. You have Dope. DMC, all of them except for Triple S have a negative connotation. Dirty, cruel, brutal, anarchaic, savage, sadistic, and sensational. All of them aren't, like, the reason why all of them are supposed to be, like, this kind of, like, positive is, it's telling you, you know, you're doing a good job.
Yeah, you're doing you're doing good. Keep it up.
Keep it up. This game doesn't have that. I mean, it has really fun combat. It has a pretty nice art style. I mean, Kat is there and she does something.
Kat is present.
Kat shows up in the game and goes, "Hey, I'm here. I can make portals to Limbo."
Yeah. She does stuff, I guess.
But
and then she gets her butt touched at the end.
She does.
Ooh.
More so than anything, I'm gonna be honest and upfront and say this was an absolute letdown. But what's your opinion of the reboot?
Now, mine's weird because, like I said, I never grew up with DMC. The first game I played was 3, and that was on the HD collection. It was before I played the reboot. But I played the reboot before I played 4. It's weird because for the longest time I was like, this game is great. I don't understand the hatred that it gets from the fans. And then I went back and I just recently played DMC 5. And I just went back. I played 4 again. I'm playing through 3 again. And all of a sudden, like, just something clicked in my head. All the pieces start kind of falling into place. I'm like, oh. I can basically sum this up in one image, which I'm going to bring up right now. There is no such thing as ethical consumption under capitalism.
There is no such thing as ethical consumption under capitalism.
It's basically how you can sum up this game. But I'm going to get into more of my actual opinions. Don't get me wrong, I really like this game. A lot of people had issues with the fact that they simplified the combat. I personally didn't. I thought the combat was very slick, very fluid. Again, for newcomers, it's a great change to how things used to play out. Instead of doing complicated directional inputs and things like that, most of the attacks are mapped to a single button, which makes it much easier to flow into different moves and keep your combos up. I really like that. I like the visual style of this game. It looks very nice from a visual perspective, and I like how I like its utilization of color. The color design in this game is very nice. It makes everything pop out. Story is mixed. I don't mind so much that they changed Dante and Vergil's backstories, and now they're half angel, half demon. That doesn't personally bother me too much. It's mainly the personalities. And while I don't hate them, compared to their original iterations, they are vastly inferior. Dante is just this punk douchebag that for the most part I actually can't stand. He has his moments here and there, and he eventually becomes the righteous hero type, but just a lot of his dialogue is just very childish, and it's childish in a different way than it was in DMC3. Because in DMC3, you could tell he was younger, he was finding his footing, he wasn't fully matured yet, but he still wasn't insufferable.
This is 100%, this Dante is insufferable.
Yeah, this Dante is pretty insufferable, because you can tell he's very childish to the point where he knows he's being childish, and he just doesn't care.
Who can forget that great conversation he had with his brother Vergil, which is, I'm taller, I'm older, yeah? Well, I have a bigger dick.
I have a bigger dick. Ooh.
Ooh.
Burn, Vergil.
Ooh.
You're not going to recover from that one.
You're not going to recover from having your dingle-dangle confused with a toothpick.
And honestly, when it comes to Vergil, I don't even recognize this character.
That's not Vergil.
Because he's so radically different from what Vergil used to be. Because Vergil, the original Vergil, like I said earlier, he was very immature, but he was cunning. He knew exactly what he was doing in his pursuit of power. He knew exactly what he was giving up, but he didn't care. Because he was so blinded by his pursuit of power that it basically warped him. And he was cold, he was calculating, he was very meticulous with his decisions. This Vergil, for the most part, is just kind of a like a slab of cardboard. He's very one-dimensional. He just seems like the stereotypical righteous, anti-establishment. We gotta bring down corporations. We gotta destroy capitalism because they're keeping their hold on us and they're controlling what we do. We want our freedom. And then all of his calculating intelligence is relegated to, I can hack, I guess. And there's no. It's weird because there's no real dark side to this Vergil up until the very end. It shows up every now and then.
Yeah.
You can tell, there's something slightly off about this guy that I don't trust. But it's not made very apparent until the very end, where all of a sudden he completely turns on his brother and Kat, and he's like, well, now that Mundus is out, I guess I'm in. Let's control the humans, but in a nice way. Which
Dante's like,
yeah,
and Vergil's like,
that was the plan, right? You knew that, right? And I was like just out of nowhere, he completely turns without any build-up, and it's like, okay, now you're just evil for the sake of being evil.
And that's only because they needed to have a Dante Vergil fight at the end.
Yeah. And his justification is really off, too. Because he's like, well, now that Mundus is out, I guess we can rule over the humans in a nice way, and we'll respect them, and they'll have their freedom. And Dante and Kat are like, that's still that's still like a tyrannical rule. You're still going to be a tyrant. Just because you say you're going to treat them nice doesn't make you any less a tyrant. And he's like, well, the entire plan was leading up to this point. Didn't you realize that? And they were like, no, that was never the plan. And Vergil was like, well, yeah, it was. You don't agree? And they're like, no. And he's like, well, I guess you're my mortal enemies now. It literally happens in the span of 5 minutes.
Yeah. And that fight sucks.
Ironically, it's the best fight in the game, but...
Yeah, it still sucks. In a series that gave us Vergil 1 and Vergil 3, this sucks.
But yeah, just the characterization is all kinds of off. The story is fine for the most part. I honestly don't mind the fact that they turned Mundus into a corporate businessman, and that he's like, use capitalism to make the population docile, because I don't know. It's weird. I agree with Matt. I'm like, yeah, it's got a lot of thematic depth when you really look at it, and it's a cool, different take. But then you compare it to the other games, and it's like, this game's way too serious for its own good.
Just because something has thematic depth does not make it deep.
Yeah. Like, this game is way too serious for its own good. But in terms of gameplay, I really like it gameplay-wise. But in terms of characters and story, very much a mixed bag. And I'm sorry for rambling a lot there, but just this game really clouds my thinking. Because it's like, I do like it, but there's so much wrong with it to the point where I might not. Like, it's just a really weird instance. It's a really weird. It's just a really weird game. What's going on over here? I hear. Is that your dad?
Yeah.
Is that your dad?
Yeah, he's leaving. He's like, hey, let the dogs out.
Okay.
Ooh.
But anyway.
But no, you also didn't have to, because you played the definitive edition.
Yeah.
More so than anything, you didn't have to deal with the fucking color-coded enemies.
Oh yeah, right.
I played the original version. That was nigh impossible to get style when you could only be damaged by either an angel or a devil weapon.
Yeah.
This game makes me the most upset from a standpoint because Itsuna was actually, he did try to salvage it.
Yeah.
And when we get to the next game, actually, it almost didn't happen. Itsuna was so upset after what happened that he wanted to resign.
Yeah.
And Capcom said, please don't, first off. We will give you anything that you need. And he says, and Capcom says, you can either make DMC 5 or you can make Dragon's Dogma 2. And Itsuna wanted to make DMC 5. And DMC 5 had almost no company interference. It was like 100 or 99 to 100% Itsuna's game.
Yeah, it was DMC 5 was a passion project.
And you can tell, and thank you is all I can say to Itsuna.
Yeah.
Is thank you.
So the reboot is very mixed. I like the game for what it is, especially in terms of its combat, but it's a very mixed bag in terms of everything else. And originally, Capcom initially hoped to sell 2 million copies by the end of its fiscal year when it was first released, but it only sold half of that. It only sold just over 1.2 million copies. Reasons given by Capcom, get this, include a delayed response to the expanding digital contents market, insufficient coordination between the marketing and the game development divisions in overseas markets, and a decline in quality due to excessive outsourcing. So basically, they blamed everything about this game selling poorly on everything else other than people just didn't like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, because of that, DMC lay dormant for a long time. The release gap between the reboot and the next game we're going to be talking about spanned 6 years of no DMC. Originally,
keep talking, I'll be back in a minute, eh?
All right, you do that. I'll continue on without you. But yeah, the gap in releases between the reboot and the next game, 6 years, no DMC. There was originally going to be a sequel to the reboot, but of course, due to fan backlash, that didn't end up going through, even though Itsuno wanted to make a sequel to the reboot, but it didn't end up happening. What did end up happening after 6 long years was the next game we're going to be talking about, which is Devil May Cry 5. Devil May Cry 5... Ah, shit, I clicked the wrong button. Devil May Cry 5 was released for the PC, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One on March 8th, 2019. 6 long years after the reboot. Devil May Cry 5 finally released in 2019. It was originally announced at the Microsoft Xbox E3 press briefing in 2018. Let's get right into it. Let's talk about the story. So, Devil May Cry 5 does not follow the reboot's canon. It follows the original series canon with Dante and Nero. The story takes place 5 years after the events of Devil May Cry 4, Nero having set up his own demon hunting agency based out of a van adorned with a neon Devil May Cry sign Dante gave him with support from Kyrie and his engineer, Nico. But on April 30th, Nero encounters a dying demon who rips off his Devilbringer arm and uses the Devil Arm Yamato to open a portal to escape in. A few days later, a man known as V comes to the Devil May Cry office to hire Dante, Lady, and Trish to kill a certain returning demon. The group arrive in Redgrave City on May 16th, crossing paths with Nero as they share the same target, a demon named Urizen, who has planted a demonic tree called the Qlifoth in the city, which is killing people for their blood. The assembled group attempt to attack Urizen together, but the demon overpowers them, all with Dante having V taking... I pronounced that weirdly, I'm sorry. The assembled group attempt to attack Urizen together, but the demon overpowers them all, with Dante having V take Nero to safety. With his sword rebellion broken by Urizen, Dante is forced to use the Devil Sword Sparda, but is ultimately defeated and ejected from the Qlifoth. Urizen then captures Lady and Trish, turning them into cores for the demons Artemis and Cavalier Angelo. A month later, on June 15th, Nero returns to Redgrave after being outfitted with the Devilbreaker prosthetic arm Nico made for him. Nero meets up with V after besting the demon Goliath, who is seeking Qlifoth for its fruit, born of condensed human blood, which makes whomever consumes it the king of the underworld. As the pair destroy the Qlifoth's roost while searching for Dante, Nero defeats Artemis and... Hello, you're back.
Yes, I am. Hi.
I'm just explaining the story of DMC5. Basically, a month after they are defeated, Nero returns to Redgrave City with his new Devilbreaker arm, meets up with V, and then the two continue to destroy Qlifoth roots, eventually reaching the Qlifoth to find Dante and take down the demon Urizen. Now, in terms of gameplay... the gameplay features the return of Dante and Nero's playable characters, along with a new character named V, who is the most interesting aspect of this game.
I love
by
him.
Far.
He is my picture on Discord. My name in the server is William Blake's #1 fan.
We will get to him. Don't worry. So the game.
Also, Shane.
Yes.
You have my blessing. 100% you can spoil.
Okay. Yes. You're right. I should mention that. Full spoiler effect is in warning for Devil May Cry 5. If you have not played it up until this point and want to remain unspoiled, please either go watch a playthrough or play the game yourself, then come back and join back in on the discussion. But let's talk about the gameplay.
Before you leave, Devil May Cry 5 has just passed 2 million units sold.
I thought it was more.
Nope, it just passed 2 million units sold. Oh, sorry, it's 2 million units sold in the first week, I think they said.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, DMC, the reboot, sold 2 million units in 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, let's talk about gameplay. So, the gameplay of Devil May Cry 5 reverts back to the series' original gameplay style. It's very similar to other titles in the original series. You play as 3 different characters, each with their own unique combat style. Nero is very similar to the way he handled in DMC4. He has the return of the Red Queen. He has his dual revolver, the Blue Rose. But he has his new Devilbreaker prosthetic arm, which you can switch between several different variants in order to... unleash different special attacks. Some arms let you fly through the air, some arms let you shock your enemies with electricity. There's one arm that's literally just the Devilbringer from DMC4 and it lets you grapple shit. It's very cool.
Very cool.
Very, very cool.
You do wrestling moves.
Yeah, like power bombs and suplexes and shit. It's great. Dante is very similar to how he handled in DMC4. He, once again, can switch between the 4 different styles on a whim. He has his Devil Trigger mode, which he can use to increase his power and speed and regenerate health. He has a bunch of different weapons. In this game, he can hold up to 4 different melee weapons and 4 different guns all at the same time, which he can actively switch between in mid-combo. So imagine DMC4 Dante with like twice as much stuff to work with. And that's DMC5. He also has a new form of his Devil Trigger called the Sin Devil Trigger, which is a more powerful version of the original Devil Trigger, allows him to unleash more powerful attacks, but at a cost of power. He cannot regenerate health while in it, and he cannot cancel it until the meter runs out. Now, the new character is the one that we want to talk about, because he's very different from anything that has existed in this franchise up to this point. Let's talk about V.
Thank you.
So, V is very unique, because V is not a fighter. He's actually, in fact, very weak and frail. Instead, he uses his demonic summons to attack enemies. He uses the Eagle Griffin, the Panther Shadow, and in his Devil Trigger form, the Goliath Nightmare, to unleash devastating attacks on his enemies. He can control them from a distance. Unfortunately, the summons cannot actually kill enemies, which means that V has to initiate the final blow in order to finish enemies off. Very different, very weird for Devil May Cry, but it somehow works. We'll obviously talk to that when we get to our thoughts, but yeah, V is extremely different gameplay style from anything else the series has seen. But yeah, let's talk about critical reception, because I feel like a lot of the changes that this game made, going back to the original style and the original continuity, really helped this game. Because in terms of reception, DMC5 received universal acclaim upon its release. It currently holds a 90 on Metacritic for the PC version, and an 87 for both the PS4 and Xbox One versions. The highest rating in the series since Devil May Cry 3, I believe. It received very good reviews. The game's narrative and concept was heavily praised. Some said its mysterious story keeps things interesting along the way. Others praised the combat as rock solid, bringing back the original style of the original games while expanding upon it. Many praised V's new, interesting, different gameplay style, saying that while there are some issues with V's combat, it very much works in the sense of the Devil May Cry series. Some criticized the fact that the game's side content felt a little lacking, and others criticized the story for being very backloaded, which I can agree. Not a lot happens in the game in the first half, but a lot of it is build up to the second half, which is fucking phenomenal. And like Spencer said, at Game Developers Conference 2019, which just recently happened, Itsuno revealed that DMC5 had already sold more than 2 million units. And let's put that into perspective, because GDC 2019 literally ends today.
Yes.
So it started on March 18th, and it ran till today, the 22nd. So in the span of like a week and a half, it sold 2 million units. That's crazy. Especially for such a niche franchise like Devil May Cry. But let's talk about what we feel about it. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but at this point you have not played it.
I have not played it. I am currently watching a playthrough of it.
So
I know some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm gonna try and keep this as spoiler free as I can for your sake.
Mm-hmm.
But this section is basically going to be me gushing about this game.
Okay.
Devil May Cry 5 is fucking phenomenal. There's so many things I could talk about, but I'm going to try and keep it as brief and comprehensible as I can, because I know I like to ramble during these kinds of things. Devil May Cry 5 is great. It is the prime example of a great return to form, because this game is everything. I talked about this on Twitter after I'd beat it. This game is everything that a DMC game should be and more. The first thing that I want to mention is the visuals, which, bless the RE engine, bless it.
The RE engine is the greatest thing to happen to Capcom in the past decade.
Yes, absolutely. Just the things that they can pull off with this engine in so many different kinds of games. It just lets them make games again. And honestly, that's what Capcom has needed for a long time. It's just the ability to make good games again. And thankfully, with this engine, they can. Because this game looks fucking phenomenal. Like, I'm a fan of the more limited visual style of the old games, just because I felt like it really helped those games portray its story in a more silly sense. Because if you limit the visuals, and if the visuals aren't the best to begin with, it really lets you emphasize just how wacky this shit is. But apparently Capcom proved me wrong, because this game has like the highest visual fidelity possible, and it pulls off the wacky, silly bullshit better than any other game in the series. I'm sorry. This game looks phenomenal. The character models are so expertly detailed and intricate. The environments are some of the best in the entire series. I know that a lot of people criticize the environments for lacking variety, but I really liked the environments that you went to in this game. They all looked stunning. Everything about this game's presentation is great. The sound is great. The soundtrack is phenomenal once again. Voice acting is top-notch, particularly, I believe it's Brian Hancock who voiced V. He does a great performance.
Yes, it's Brian Hancock.
Yeah. Johnny Young Bosch returning as Nero. Honestly, the best performance he's given in a long time. There's one scene near the end that I'm not going to spoil, but anyone who has played the game probably knows what I'm talking about. Johnny Young Bosch kills it in this game, and so does Ruben Langdon as Dante. Just great performances all around. In terms of gameplay, I'm still on the fence. It's been about a week since I beat it. I'm still thinking things over because there's just so much to consider when you contemplate this game. This might be my favorite game in the series. And I know that's kind of jumping the gun because it just came out. I'm sure this is just like a honeymooner period, but there's something about this game that I love more than any other game in this franchise. The gameplay, it reverts back to how DMC 3 and 4 handled things, where it is much more complex. The directional inputs, along with the button presses, are back. The style system is as good as it's ever been. I really love the new style system. It's just something about this gameplay that just clicked with me. I don't know if it's the fact that it controls so well. I don't know if it's the fact that it's probably the fastest and most fluid that it's ever been. I don't know if it's maybe the fact that I'm considering V in all of this and just how different he is from Dante and Nero in terms of gameplay. I don't know what it is, but just something about playing this game above all the other games in the series just immediately clicked with me. Because it took me a little bit to get into DMC 3. It took me a little bit to get into DMC 4, especially switching back and forth between Nero and Dante. This game clicked with me, like, immediately. It's fast, it's fluid, it's frenetic, it's brutal. Everything about the combat in this game is so goddamn addicting that I literally could not put this game down for 3 days straight. I just marathoned this game 3 days after I got it, and I beat it, and it was so much fun throughout the entire thing. And sure, there's a couple of, like, really minor issues. Again, not a lot happens in the story in the first half. There's some weird difficulty spikes, but that's always been a thing with DMC. Some of the controls are a little wonky, and I think that's due to the old school nature of it, because it's reverting back to the styles of, like, DMC 3 and 4. You're going to have those issues, because this game is playing it old school, and it knows that it is. But if you can look past those issues and just get to the game that's here, this might possibly be the best game Capcom has made in the past 10 years. And I don't say that lightly. Like, I'm being completely serious when I say that. The game they have crafted here is quite possibly one of the greatest action games ever made, quite possibly the best DMC game they've ever made, and easily, without a doubt, game of the year for me right now. It's going to take a lot to beat this game. Like, it's gonna have to take a lot to top this game in terms of my Game of the Year rankings, because this game easily is the best game I played so far this year, and I can't wait to go back to it, play it on Son of Sparda, and unlock all the different costumes. It's just so much fun. It knows exactly what it is. It praise Itsuno. Like, just praise this man for crafting such a unique, memorable, and engaging experience. It's incredibly addicting. It's just a ton of fun to play. I love everything about it. And with that said, that is the most recent release in the Devil May Cry franchise. Again, very intricate development history, a lot of stuff to talk about.
Well, if I may mention some stuff about
Yes,
DMC5
please, go for it.
So, as Shane has stated, I do not own DMC5 yet. But I'm going to bring some stuff that Shane didn't talk about that I think deserves a spotlight to be shined on it.
Yeah, please fill any holes that I might have missed.
This game has the best taunts.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
In a game where, for those of you who don't know, because we actually surprisingly didn't touch on it, Dante, Nero, and anybody else can taunt. And what taunting does is it basically freezes your style meter for a little bit to allow you to rebuild it. It's basically like a pause. In this game, they decided that, you know what, let's just make all these taunts, okay? And every taunt is amazing. And then they're like, what if we gave every character a unique taunt that brought them straight to S rank? From D to S. But it cost you 300 million red orbs.
It's not. It's just 3 million.
Sorry, 3 million
red orbs. Don't overinflate it.
Don't overinflate it. I'm sorry. 3 million red orbs. You can buy EX Provocation. And who has the best EX Provocation? In my mind, it's Nero.
Yeah, because he just does the classic jig.
The classic jig. V does like a singing in the rain type thing.
Yeah. And
Dante does the Dante dance.
Dante's is like a 60s disco kind of dance. Like, you can tell that he's like, this is an older Dante, so you can tell he's trying to be, like, hip and cool again when he does that taunt, and it's kind of fucking hilarious.
V has a taunt, has an S-rank taunt, where he points and goes, "Thus endeth your requiem," and he conducts, and his music dies down, and fucking Flight of the Valkyries by Richard Wagner starts playing as he's just conducting, and in the background you have Griffin and Nightmare and maybe even Shadow just fucking beating the shit out of these demons as fucking Flight of the Valkyries plays. He has one that is all about, like, playing the violin with his cane.
Mm-hmm. And you can actually hear the violin.
The honest to God, exactly what this series needed.
Yeah.
And I know some brief spoilers about what V is.
Yeah, well, I gave a spoiler warning, but again, I don't want to spoil it for you.
Yeah.
So.
Yes. So I know the spoiler warning is still in effect. Like, I do know that V is Vergil, like the human side of Vergil.
But yeah. Okay.
But I do not know exactly how that works and how that plays out. So, but yeah, I do know that, like, Urizen is the demon side and V is the human side.
Yeah.
But I don't know, how they got split up or how that works. But this game is the most... Okay, I'm going to put this in a game like... And this could sound weird because this is a AAA title.
Yeah.
But I'm going to put this with games like Shovel Knight and Cuphead and games like Battle Block Theater.
Okay.
Do you know what all three of those games have in common?
No, tell me, actually.
There's something very rare in the game development field at this point. And it's something called heart and love and enjoyment of the medium. Shovel Knight was made by Yacht Club.
Mm-hmm.
as this homage to 90s platformers.
I would even argue 80s platformers.
80s and 90s
further
platformers.
than that.
Yeah, going further beyond. Cuphead was made as an homage to 1930s Disney and cartoons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Battleblock Theater was made as this homage to kind of wacky co-op games.
Yeah.
This is an homage to everything that Itsuno loves.
Yeah. This is a hardcore tribute to the action hack and slash genre. Like, it basically encapsulates everything that made that genre work and expands upon it.
You can play this game and you will be absolutely fine.
Mm-hmm.
You might miss some of the big things, like, regardless, play all the DLC games. But it does tell you in the beginning, there's like a little like, hey, there's the history of DMC.
Yeah, there's a history of DMC option on the menu. It just briefly recaps all the games, so you're fine.
It somehow did the impossible and made the anime canon.
Which, I learned that the anime was always canon, it's just no one talks about it.
No one talks about it.
Because I'm going to briefly... I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to briefly bring up the anime. The anime aired in 2007. It was produced by Madhouse. It is canon in the series. It takes place between 1 and 2. It's just weird because the anime is not great, so no one really talks about it.
But it did give us one of my favorite characters, which is Morrison.
Which, did you hear that his voice actor is apparently super racist?
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently. That just came out yesterday. It just came out yesterday that apparently he deleted some old videos on his YouTube channel that were super racist.
God damn it. Everything that you love is racist.
Yeah, everything that you love is actually terrible.
There's no ethical consumption under capitalism.
There it is.
But, I mean, I still like the character.
Yeah.
Morrison. It gives a reason why his name is Tony Redgrave and why he went by Tony Redgrave.
Yeah. That's some weird developer lore in there.
Yeah, very weird developer lore. It also... Oh, I know. It gives us a character who is really, really trying my love for Lady.
Yeah, Nico, which we didn't really talk about. Nico is the best girl. I don't even give a shit. They went all out with her character, and she's the fact that they paired her with Nero is perfect, because she's the complete antithesis to Nero.
Which is... She forces Nero to be the straight man.
Yeah.
And Nero is not a straight man.
Absolutely not.
Oh, okay. He is a straight man, but he's not the...
Yeah, he's not the straight man. But he tries to be.
Do you remember how he's how the old man, aka Vergil, comes in and is steals his arm, but before he steals his arm, fucking Nero's like, oh yeah, Kyrie's making macaroni and cheese. She always makes too much. Oh god, my arm.
He's like, hey, you hungry? Well, you're in luck. My girlfriend always makes way too much food. You can send in a what's this? Oh, my arm's gone.
I thought originally that the arm was going to be cut off, not that he fucking rips it off.
He literally grabs him by the wrist and throws him so hard into the wall, he just tears it off. And it's like, oh my god.
But Nico is the daughter of Agnes from DMC4. And much like Lady from DMC, really shows that if you want to be best buddies with the gang, you kind of have to hate your father.
Yeah. It's just, if you have eternal daddy issues, just join the DMC crew. You fit right in.
The big thing that I want to talk about Nico, aside from the fact that her character is amazing, is, and this is just a little for everybody who plays the game, pick up every phone.
Oh god, yes. And you don't even have any opportunities to miss any phones because they actively say, hey, look, there's a phone. Better call Nico.
I should call that girl.
And then, like, Nico can go anywhere and do anything, don't at me. Like, her van is indestructible.
That van, I don't care, I'm going to say it, that van is her stand.
What would it be called, though?
The Cars.
What if okay,
yes.
Plot twist. Part 9, right?
Yeah.
They bring back Cars, but he's an actual car.
So, like, Wheel of Fortune.
Yes.
Yes.
But he's like, he's not a stand, he's just a car.
A car? Oh, so like an Autobot.
Yeah.
Okay. I like it.
Alright, Araki, get on that.
Please. Help me help you. I just love her, dude.
Yeah, she's great. I love her so much.
She's this quirky, super bisexual woman who's just like, well, pick up that demon shit. I'm gonna start smelling it. I can make an arm out of this one.
I just briefly want to mention this before I move on, because we do have to move on.
Yes.
I love the characterization in this game. Like, they nail everyone.
Everyone is perfect.
Everyone is spot on, because there's one scene in particular that I absolutely love. I believe it's after Nero beats Gilgamesh. Nico's like, hey, pick that shit up, we might need it. And the fact that he goes for the fucking can of peaches.
Peaches on the ground, like, eh?
He goes for the can of peaches before the priceless demon artifact.
And she's just like, no, that one. And he goes to pick up a rock, and she's like, over there.
He's like, for the love of God, this one? And she's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah, sure.
I'm like, oh my God, praise the writers.
I thought you were going to talk about the, I think it was after you beat the Proto Angelo and all that. When she fucking drives the van, it almost drives it off a cliff. And Nero's like...
Perfect timing.
And she goes, get in the van. Oh, God.
Oh, God, I almost died.
I can't say anything more except for the fact that this game is genuinely one of the most fun experiences I've had watching a video in a long time.
It's so well written, and they nail what makes these characters great. It's such a good return to form. And
fuck!
Yeah.
Sorry, one more thing before we move on. I just remembered it. One more thing. We need to talk about the Ultimate Edition.
Oh my God, yes.
We need to talk... Okay, so the Ultimate Edition, aside from having the cutscenes that you see in-game, has the behind-the-scenes cutscenes, which is every cutscene has to be acted out
as a visual reference for the animators.
So you can watch those visual references and acting out. You know that Griffin is just a guy in a green suit wearing a cape?
I was going to mention that. He's literally just a dude they dressed up, and they put him on a ladder and just had him flap his arms. And it's the best shit.
They use fucking action figures and, like, string, and it's it's fucking hilarious.
And honestly, I regret that I didn't get the deluxe edition.
Yeah.
Because, god damn, those cutscenes are amazing.
And if you think that there's not enough content, wait approximately... 1 second. A week in a bit.
Because Bloody Palace is coming out.
Bloody Palace comes out. And you also get another... and later on, you're getting a piece of DLC. I believe it's free DLC as well. Called Ladies' Night Out.
Oh?
Girls' Night, sorry. Yeah. It's been heavily rumored by some, like, super accurate insiders that they are planning on making, like, a DLC adventure for Lady and Trish.
Ooh, I want that.
It's going to be called Girls' Night Out, I believe what they said.
I want that. I also want them to make something with Vergil.
Yes.
Because that would be amazing. But yeah, DMC5 is a triumph in every sense of the word. It's a great return to form for the series. It's got arguably the best gameplay, and just everything about it, they nailed. And with that said, that is the most recent release for Devil May Cry. So now we're going to get into our very brief opinions on the series as a whole. So Spencer, let's start with you, since, again, out of the two of us, you're the bigger DMC guy. What are your feelings on Devil May Cry as a series?
Devil May Cry has had its fair shares of ups and downs, but its ups are far over its downs. Mm-hmm. And when this game gets going, and this series is allowed to expand and have fun with its stupid woohoo pizza time, this is genuinely, and I kid you not, one of the single greatest video game series ever made. And I will stand by that until the day I die. Kamiya and Itsuna are two absolute geniuses, and the fact that Kamiya has expressed interest in making a complete remake of DMC1, as well as a crossover game between Bayonetta and Dante, just makes me all the more excited about what might happen later on.
Yeah.
And
because
if you can do... Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, because you never know. Like, him and Capcom might get in touch with each other. They might show interest in it. They might actually let him do it. Like,
yeah,
and that's exciting to think about.
Kamiya didn't leave Capcom on bad terms. Kamiya just did his own thing.
Well, yeah. Well, before they made Platinum, they went and formed Clover Studios, and they made Beautiful Joe, and they made Okami, and things like that, before they eventually did leave on their own terms and went and made Platinum. So,
like, it's not like Inafune, who just
up and left.
Up and fucked off and tried to make... I actually forget the name of that game now.
A Mighty Number 9?
Thank you, Mighty Number 9.
I know.
I was gonna call it Magnificent Number 9.
You know what? At this point, close enough.
And I'm gonna say it, but Capcom has gotten better and better since Inafune left.
Yeah, actually. Like, marginally better.
So, thank you to Capcom, who, if you don't know me, is actually it's my favorite company. I've been a Capcom fan my entire life, so...
Even through all the bullshit.
Even through all the bullshit. So, I want to thank them for allowing Itsuna to do what he wants. I want to thank Itsuna for just knocking it out of the park when he picked it up after 2. Mm-hmm. I want to thank Kamiya for starting this. I want to thank everybody who listens to me go on and on and on about Dante and his wackiness, and Vergil and the fact that he's a massive dork, and Nero, who can probably drop kick God. But this series is very special to me, and I hope to God it goes on for years to come.
Yeah. I think after the success of the fantastic success of 5, which is very good to hear, I think Devil May Cry is in a very good spot. In terms of how I feel about Devil May Cry, I completely agree with Spencer. Devil May Cry is one of those franchises that comes around maybe once in a decade, where it comes out of nowhere and it immediately makes a name for itself. And I love everything about Devil May Cry. I completely agree with Spencer when I say it might not be my favorite series, but it is easily one of my favorites. Like, it's right up there with the likes of Sonic, Mega Man, Halo, things like that. Like, I love these games.
This is up there with me with like BioShock, The Legend of Zelda, like stuff like that.
Yeah. Everything about the series is great, and sure, yeah, it has had its ups and its tremendous downs, but the pros far outweigh the cons. When Devil May Cry is good, it is better than almost any it's better than almost any of its contemporaries, because Devil May Cry is just so unique and out there, and it knows exactly what it is, and it revels in its absurdity. I think that's the thing that gets me. Like, if it had went the DMC2 route and it had played it overly serious and cut all of the witty banter and the cracking of the jokes and all of that wacky over-the-top stuff, DMC would probably be dead by now. And I'm so glad that Itsuno really went out of his way to make it as good as it has been. And the fact that it's had a tremendous comeback with DMC5, and even the reboot, which in its own sense is a very good game. Just everything about the series is great, and I love the fact that it knows exactly what it is, and it wears its identity on its sleeve. It's like, hey, you like killing demons, you like over-the-top action, you like really wacky but relatable and deep characterization, you're gonna love this game. And again, it's had its ups and downs, but the pros far outweigh the cons. I can forgive things like DMC2 or the reboot, because we have things like DMC3 and DMC4 and DMC5 that more than make up for it. So, as long as Capcom keeps doing what they're doing, as long as they keep this hot streak going, and as long as they keep Itsuno on to really put his vision into it, DMC is going to be very, very successful in the near future. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they already greenlit DMC 6, because I want it, like, now. But yeah, DMC is great, and I love everything about it. And so, briefly, before we wrap up, let's talk about our experiences with DMC. Are there any fond memories of these games that you want to mention briefly, Spencer?
Yes, I would like to mention the first time that I played DMC 1, which would have been 2004.
So you were like a wee babby.
I was 7 when I first played it, yeah, 7 or 8. I remember hearing, and you're about to hear it as well, actually, for the first time, the intro, which is like this kind of like weird like techno synth beat, and it's like guns and fire, and then Dante comes out of nowhere and goes, "Let's rock, baby!" Bang, and shoots the title screen and it explodes, and then you get the and then you hit start and you get the reverse echo, which goes, "The devil may cry." It's such a fond sound effect that I promise you, after maybe a recording session and maybe 1.5 sessions of recording this game, you're going to come back to me, maybe even after the first one, when you first hear it, you're going to be like, that reverse echo is so... It's like having the announcer or the narrator say Resident Evil when you hit start. It's that iconic for the series, and I can't wait for that. And just being not even being a 7-year-old kid with your PS2 playing Devil May Cry and going, video games can't get better than this.
Video games are something else, man.
They really are.
Are there any other memories you want to reminisce about?
Woohoo Pizza Man.
Woohoo Pizza Man.
Woohoo Pizza Time is a joke that I make a lot, and I will give.
Oh, he sent me a link.
I sent you a link to the video.
Oh, okay, Spear Hunter, cool.
Yeah, she's really good. I recommend checking it out.
Sphere Hunter, what makes Devil May Cry 2 a bad sequel? I'll be sure to watch that later.
Yeah, no. Watch all of her DMC stuff. It's really good. So, the series that I'm watching right now is I'm watching Wooly and Pat.
You're watching Wooly Versus.
Wooly Versus, which you would know Wooly and Pat as being part of the best friends before they broke up. And this is what I missed. Honestly, this camaraderie between the two, just fucking shit talking and playing games, really brings you back to those old...
I've been watching like compilations of their playthroughs of the other games, and it's just really nice to see like that connection that they share, and the fact that they can play these games that they played several times before and they absolutely love, and they just go at it with the banter and the jokes, and it's just really nice.
It's really good, and if you enjoy the banter between Wooly and Pat, they do have a podcast called Castle Super Beast, which is really good. But just all of this kind of connects to, and I about things like anime as well, which is, this is not just pieces of code. This is somebody's love and somebody's enjoyment in what they want to give somebody. Video games are an experience. Video games should be an art form, and they basically are.
Video games are art, like
100%.
Yeah.
And DMC is this gothic style, extremely loosely based off of arguably my favorite book of all time. I've read The Divine Comedy 8 times, and I've read Dante's Inferno 11 times. It's just, this series comes along once a decade, and I can't wait to play more of this. So Thank you.
In terms of my memories and experiences, I didn't grow up with it like Spencer did, so it's kind of like a Kingdom Hearts situation where I don't have the fondest memories and I don't have super high nostalgia, but the memories I have of the series have stuck with me. Like I said earlier, DMC4 is like my Christmas game, where I usually play it every year at Christmas Eve, and it's just, every time going back to it, it just brings back the memories of playing it for the first time, and it rekindles the spark in me. That's like, I love this game and everything it did, and I don't think I would be, as weird as it is to say, I don't think I would be exactly the person I am today without that game and just playing it on a yearly basis. It's just a great memory. And another memory I have is, I remember when I first played DMC4, I played a demo of it when I first got my Xbox 360. And I sucked at it, and I hated it because I sucked at it. And it was this weird introduction to the series where it's like, I don't really understand this, and I'm not good at it, so I don't like it. And then, like, maybe 4 or 5 years later, getting the HD collection and actually playing these games and playing DMC3 for the first time on the PS3 of all things. It's just such a whimsical experience. Like, it's one of those things that just sticks with you. And playing DMC3 for the first time and getting into the tower and fighting Cerberus, it's just such a great memory. And getting a little further and fighting the giant centipede, or I can't remember, I think it was called the Gigapede. I think that was the actual specific name of that boss, the Gigapede, where it was this really big monster fight, but it was also kind of puzzle situation where you had to survey the environment and figure out how to get on top of it to deal the most damage. And
oh yes.
Yeah. The Gigapede. It's just great all around. Even going back to playing the reboot for the first time, because contrary to popular belief, I did actually briefly play the original version. Because I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was free on PS Plus. I think back in 2015, like early 2015, before the definitive edition came out. So I played it on the PS3, and I liked it for what it was, but I didn't beat it on the PS3. And then it's a weird story how I played the definitive edition. My girlfriend and I at the time got into a huge fight, and we weren't really talking, so I was kind of depressed. So one day my sister just took me to Best Buy, and I, on a whim, just bought DMC Devil May Cry for the Xbox One. And I went home and I played it in like a couple days. And then I played it again on Son of Sparda, and I played it again on Heaven or Hell, and just killed everything in one hit. And I was like, this is a good game. And I just really enjoyed my time with it. And I don't know why that sticks out so fondly in my head, but I think that's where a lot of my affection for the reboot comes from. It's because I played it at a time where I wasn't in the best headspace. Like, I wasn't feeling the best. I wasn't the happiest person. So, and it really helped me kind of get out of that stage of my depression. And I think that's where a lot of my affection for that game comes from. It's just because it helped me out of a really bad time. And again, like, playing DMC5 just like a week or two ago is going to stick out in my head like years from now because of how much I ended up loving that game. It's just, I don't know. This series is great, man. Like, I can't say enough good things about it. But with that said, I think that's enough rambling. Unless there's anything else you want to bring up, I think we can wrap things up here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me try that again. Well, I mean, actually, yes. I'm going to say what was coming out first, but I'll say that. Play Resident Evil, first off.
Right.
Because it's good. But most importantly, play Devil May Cry. You can start with 4, honestly.
You can start with 4. You can start with 3.
3?
You can start with 4. If you want to start from the first, go for it. Like, DMC has this weird affinity where you can just pick up any game at any point and just jump right into it. And honestly, that's one of its strongest suits, because everything is so standalone.
Just for everybody's safety, honest to God, watch a video on DMC2. You don't have to play it. Trust me, you don't have to play it.
Here's the thing, Spencer. You're not a real fan unless you play 2. Which, I mean, I guess I'm not a real fan then, so... Everything I've said in this 2 hours is just completely null and void.
I mean, I've beaten DMC2 once.
But, if there's anything else you want to bring up?
Nope.
Alright, I think we can wrap this up then. So, thank you very much for watching another episode of the Bearded Banter Podcast. I hope you enjoyed our very, very long discussion on Devil May Cry. It's one of our favorite series, and we just wanted to talk about it because it's relevant again, and it's doing really good. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the rambling. If you like what you've seen, you can subscribe to BGN for more great gaming content. We do the Bearded Banter Podcast every other Friday. We do other gaming videos, Let's Plays, live streams, unboxings, etc., etc. I've started doing more highlight-style edited videos that have been doing really well, and I'm really enjoying editing those, so subscribe for more of those. And what else do we do, Spencer?
Click that bell.
Click the bell for notifications on when we upload so you can get the new videos right when they come out. Thank you very much for watching. We will see you again in 2 weeks for another installment of the Bearded Banter Podcast. We're going to be going back to our normal format after this video, just because we've been getting back into the groove of things over the last few weeks. So we're going to ditch the topic formats, and we're going to go back to normal next podcast, which is in 2 weeks. Thank you very much for watching. I have been your host, Shane, the Bearded One. You can follow me on Twitter at BeardedGamingN for more great updates on BGN and just other stuff in general, things about gaming, anime, movies, other things. With me, I have my honorary co-host for the day, Spencer. You can follow him on Twitter at Beery Burton with 2 E's.
2 E's.
Where he doesn't really do much.
I retweet a lot and like a lot of stuff. I'm trying to. I'll start tweeting more, and with that, if I may, Shane.
Yes.
To see the world in a grain of sand, and to see heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hands, and eternity in an hour.
That was a V thing. For anyone who didn't know, that's DMC5.
William Blake.
We'll see you guys in 2 weeks for another exciting installment of the podcast, but keep on gaming, everyone.
See ya!